everybody. Welcome back to this. I'm your host, Shauna Griffiths. And as always, we're having a real talk with a real leader today. Before we get started, I want to give some thanks and shouts out to our founding partners, Hijinks Agency, 6 to 8 Digital, and Felicia Hall Allen and Associates. So, folks, I am welcoming Courtney Carter to the show today. Courtney, thank you so much for making this happen. You're on the road, you're at Art Basel in Miami, and you made time for this. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh my God, Shauna, I'm so happy to finally be on the pod. I'm so proud of you. Can I, just for everybody who listens I remember, it's a core memory of mine from pandemic. It's a core memory of mine when you called and said, I'd really want to talk to you. And I would go on these very long walks around the neighborhood I lived in at the time. And I just remember talking to you about, you were kind of at a bit of a crossroads. Like, I have this idea, I want to do this thing. And it was just such a motivating conversation for me to be able to, like, one, that you would call me and ask, hey, what do you think? And this is where I'm at. And, I think we originally met through like a women in sports and events through WISE. And so we met in this beautiful place where women help each other. And to be honest, we were so separated in pandemic. So it was this amazing moment where I felt in like fellowship with someone that like I don't get to see all the time, and it was amazing. And then to be honest, we haven't really connected since in any major way. And so it's like, look at the baby, you're like a toddler now. This beautiful podcast. I don't know, I'm just very, very honored that you'd have me on. So hi.
Oh, that means so much to me. I always give the audience context for how I know the person. So you shared that already. We know each other through WISE from years and years ago in New York City. And I love that you remember that moment because I still have I'm sorry?
Don't say years and years. You could just say years ago.
Oh. Sorry, years. Years, because I know I was already talking about how old I feel and I am. But anyway, so no, but I love that you remember that moment in the pandemic because I literally still have my notes from that conversation and I think about it all the time. And I was telling you when we were catching up a bit before we started recording is that I literally wanted to get better at my hosting before I had you on because you helped me so much. And so talk about impact. I mean, you have impacted my journey most recently in the podcast, but more than I've actually even shared with you, which we'll get into a bit as we are talking. No, but really, like, I think as we were growing up, air quotes, in New York City, in sports and entertainment, and to your point about fellowship and females, and they're as we were coming up there, I didn't really feel there was a lot of that I could really tap into, and which is why I got to be a part of WISE. And I knew of you before I knew you. And it was like everybody, Courtney Carter this, Courtney Carter that. It's like, and then when I got to know you, I truly felt special that you were like open to me and you were always welcoming and things like that. So just for people hearing, I think remember as we're coming up, like it can really mean a lot to give people that those moments, that energy, that fellowship that you're talking about, and you can make a bigger impact on people than you really even realize.
Oh, that means a lot. Like there was an immediate like magnetism when we met. I was like, oh, I'm messing with her. I don't know if we can swear on this podcast. I'm messing with her. And I think it was the former student athlete thing. And, that's always, I can tell when someone's been through some stuff, like you've definitely thrown up doing fitness drills at some point. And, that means you're not good people. But
it's so true. You say that, and I have distinct memories of the basketball court and like garbage pails around the court for people who were puking.
People don't know. We want to talk about feelings. We didn't ever get to talk about our feelings. Oh. It was like feelings, you can throw them up over there and keep going. Like, okay, great. character.
It's so true. It's so true. But I actually just like skipped right. We just started talking about, like our connection and everything. But folks, Courtney is founder and CEO of Carter Media Group. Courtney, you've had such an incredible career with stops along the way. ESPN, CAA, MLS. I'm out of order, folks. But I, I think it's like, and something that I've seen along the way is it seems to me that you've made these big, bold moves in your career, right? And I think some people they'll get stuck, whether it's on the team side, the league side, it's not stuck. It's just that that's where they go and they land. But I've always really admired you making these bold moves, and you seem to do it from afar. You seem to do it with such confidence and grace. So, would love for you to share with the audience, a bit about what you're doing now, and your story of evolution.
Sure. Big question, but I'll do my best.
Yes, I know.
It's okay. It's all good. It's an honor. Like I think, look, at the end of the day, Carter Media Group is. I'm honored and humbled to be able to have my own company. We we represent people, stories, and ideas that are shaping culture, right? That are shifting narratives, disrupting things that are systematically, I'd say biased towards one group or another, and really opening up. I was explaining to someone last night in an event. I was like, I just love being able to widen the highway for more cars to go through with more efficiency and more faster, and like get other places, just to use, I love analogies. So, we're really honored. We represent people all across industry. So, so we have a director, we have, people that work at the intersection of food, art, design, and activism. We have a client who's, one of the foremost, essentially kind of culture creators in the streetwear area of the business. We have, someone who is the first Salma Masakela, who is the host of the X Games, right? So we cross genre in a major way. We represent a big wave surfer, and a producer and a former White House, senior level executive who's now telling stories, because that's how we change things in ourselves, which then allows us to kind of, change the world. And for me, it's kind of beautiful when I see someone or I see something or I hear something. I'm like, that, for whatever reason, that's always been part of what I love about what I do, whether that's me working at a team or a league or in sports or entertainment. Is I have I don't know what that radar is, but I'm like, that's important or that's special. And however I can help amplify, build, and I think with our current clients, the goal is to build, change narratives, create generational wealth, and have a really great time at the same time, do it and make it look dope and fly, and, not just like plug and play. I think I've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit. And so, when you talk about, it looks so easy. And we were
I didn't say easy. I said you do it with confidence and grace, because it is not easy. We were talking about that earlier. We were talking about it earlier, folks. Like, entrepreneurialism is really fucking hard, and you have to be willing to give things up along that journey. But when it means something like you're talking about, then there's no question in that. But so again, not easy, but you do it with grace and confidence.
For the correction. But my whole life, I thought about this a few times. I've always really enjoyed creating spaces where people can come together to enjoy themselves or celebrate or interact, right? And so, even from a very young age, I used to actually, when I was very young, I went to a Peter Pan pancake breakfast with my family. Right, this is a true story. And those like fishing pole activities when you're little, you like put the ticket and then they like tug it and whatever. I was like, this is easy. I could do this. I could charge for tickets. So I started the Carter Carnival. I was 6. We built the games. I made the flyers. My mom and dad were super supportive of my entrepreneurial idea. We went around all the neighborhoods and put the flyers, and we had a Carter Carnival. I think there was like 10 or 12 games, cornhole, things like that. 10 cents a ticket. I remember the price. And yeah,
I love
10,
this.
10 cents a ticket. And we did it for 3 straight years. It was like the annual Carter Carnival. And so I loved being able to create a space, right? Where no matter who you were or what you looked like or whatever, like come have a carnival. And I don't think I've ever stopped doing that. I think, whether it was in my sporting career or my philanthropic career or in my kind of corporate career, my whole thing was I want to know as much as I can. So when I am potentially in a point of leadership, no one who works with me or for me is going to be able to be like, well, she doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. And so every time I looked at an opportunity, it always was through the lens of, am I going to learn? Is this going to expand? Do I feel a little uncomfortable? And if the answer to that is yes, it means I need to take the job, or it means I need to do the thing because I'm going to expand my experience, my knowledge, and then I'm going to be better for whatever it is. And so I will tell you that in all those stops, whether that was, from the Garden and the Knicks and the Liberty and Rangers to some and MLS and US Soccer and WPS, the second women's league, to ESPN, to CAA, to then starting CMG, those moments of in between where you're like, ooh, they all weren't, I never sought any of those things out. And I'm very lucky in that. It was, I think the only time there was a bit of was when I was leaving the Garden and I went to soccer. And that was my sport for everybody. Shauna played basketball. I played soccer in college. Go
I was gonna say Division I college soccer player, folks. She played at Oregon State. She was a total badass. Which is a great thread into your continued involvement in soccer, which we'll get to what you've been doing recently in that in a bit.
So this is a very long answer to a very simple question, but at the end of the day, God, by the grace of God, I have always been able to have my faith is very important to me, and so whenever a moment of opportunity comes where I decide to shift or go, first I go to prayer, and if there's that, okay. Then I said, just go. If I'm going to do anything, I'm going to bet on myself. And I think when I moved from Oregon to New York by myself and I was in the sales role, I'm like, I don't have a Rolodex. But it was like I could either go to the NBA and be in their program. They had a developmental program for like 10 people a year. And I got in. But I also got an offer at the Knicks to be an account executive, which paid $20,000 more. I mean, which in New York is a big deal. So $30,000 versus $50,000.
Yeah.
Plus an opportunity to make commission. And I was like, okay, live in Queens with 6 people or live in Soho with 1 and still be scraping, but different experience. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to bet on anybody, it's me. And if I go to New York, I want to build my brand, not someone else's brand. Okay. So, because I knew if in a sales role, I was going to be forward facing to the market, obviously in line with the Knicks and the teams. But I don't know how I knew so early, like your name is your name. And if you have an ability to build great equity in that, take it.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I think it's a great thing to share. I think because we have people in all stages of their careers who are in our audience, and I think that there is an element of, I think people really talk about like building your personal brand now. I don't really remember it being talked about so much then. Yeah. But I think there was this, and maybe this was that kind of you and I both had this from being athletes, that your work ethic, your name, your reputation was all you had. And so for me, that's what it was for me. And so, that I used. And so I think it's great for you to share that I didn't have that realization at the time that a sales role would help me do that. So I love that you shared that with people, so that people who are listening, it's like, I think sometimes we shy away from something like a sales role, or people can get a negative connotation to that. But I think it's great to point out that can really actually help you to a bit of get over yourself and
Also,
put
look at
yourself out there.
my network. What this
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah.
People are like, what do you do for a living? I was like, I go on dates. I go on dates. I send people emails and I ask them to go to lunch or come to a game. And then I sit with them. We have wine. We eat. We talk about what's important to us. And then I ask them for money, later.
Yeah. That's so
It's not
awesome.
that simple, but truly,
Yeah.
you're literally meeting people. You're having to learn how to present yourself.
Yeah.
You're having to learn, and then that is translatable whether you're interviewing for a job or you're on an actual
Mhm.
personal date or whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
I was able to really sharpen my interpersonal skills, and my ability to truly understand what someone needs versus what someone wants,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
what the intersection of that is for what my intention is, right? So I think earlier it was more like, oh, we're just gonna, I didn't get to the point as fast. I think 11 years in New
Mhm.
York changed that for me. But
Yeah.
I think that it's you said something interesting there about sales has like a bad rap. I think instead of going to grad school, you should go into sales.
Yeah. Agreed.
Like,
100%.
because you have to learn, you have to fail, you have to learn what it means to earn commission, and that like
Yeah.
you don't just get stuff, like
Mhm.
it creates character. And some of my best friends to this day are people I pitched,
Yeah.
like you
Right.
just never know who you're gonna meet, so anyway.
It's so true. I think it also really helps to sharpen your ability to listen
Mm,
because you said something really important about the difference between what someone needs and what someone wants. And I think that when you're in a role, when you're selling something, especially if you're selling like a sponsorship package or some sort of a package where you have to create that experience,
yeah,
it's got to actually fit both of those things
totally.
and both the needs and the wants. And it also has to be, it has to do something for that person. Again, like it's not just a sign, right? It's something that actually does something for their brand, does something for their audience. And I think that so anyway, I just think that the way you get there really is by honing your ability to listen to people. And sometimes that means you're listening for what people say, but you're also listening for what they don't say.
That's a really astute and important point. Yeah, 2 ears and one mouth.
Yeah.
That's what.
So no, I mean, I think I just love that we had this conversation. I think part of it also that bit about your network, because I think sometimes when we can go through our career and we can go to a place, a business, an organization, and you can get really caught up in the internal, in the people within the organization. And so I think that and I've heard actually people say that like their network is actually just within the walls of the company, or it's an extension of like their boss's network. And so sometimes that can feel inhibiting. And so I think that is a really beautiful thing that you shared, that like sales actually can help you expand your network, like, just so exponentially. And that becomes important because then it's your network. It's not somebody else's network that you're just borrowing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And then we are put on this earth to connect with other people. Like, to really boil it down, we're here to love and be loved, and not to get too like woo woo here, but so jobs are jobs. They earn us paper that means something, that buys stuff, right? So, or crypto or whatever you use. And so I think that the important thing is I've always just been taught from very young ages, integrity is number one, and your name is your
Mm.
name. And those two things they cannot be separated, because the
Yeah.
minute you compromise your integrity, you compromise your name. And that's
Hmm.
attached to legacy and family, like it's important. And so you never know what you're going to be doing what that person's going to be doing, but what you do know is that relationships are important. And if they bring something to your life, look, not everybody I meet I like. I'm sure not everybody that meets me likes me. So, but at the end of the day, yeah, I think the network and then choosing spaces that you'd like to be in with where you know others will be that you want to connect with, like Wise, which I was, so honored to be a part of. And to be honest, my way in, I started going to some events, and Sue Roden had found out that I was in sales, and like apparently that I was good at it. And she was like, so and I was like, oh, here we go. Okay. But to be honest, what was so beautiful about that is I got to then go out to the market and represent Wise as well. Right. Yeah. So I was representing this amazing organization doing amazing things for women in the industry. And that opened up a whole other different network too.
Yeah.
Where I touched people that I wasn't trying to sell. I was just like, no, this is important. You should be a part of it. And because there was shared values, right? Some, I mean, case in point, you and I, like, we don't talk all the time, but we have a very strong base and foundation because we care about the same stuff.
Right. And that's such a great point. I think that, again, there's this concept I was planning to ask you about, which was like North Star, and I think it's really evident that it's like something that means something that has an impact. It creates that sort of like push forward. It's uniting. And so I think and I do think it unites people along the way. And to your point, like, for the audience, Courtney and I talk like we on this right now. And well, actually every time we talk like we talk all the time, but it's this beautiful thing that because we have this commonality of what guides us on the journey, I think is a really great way where it can help our friendship to maintain and grow through time and miles. And so, I think it's really helpful, I think, to have these realizations as you're figuring out, because sometimes you have to figure out who do you and who do you not mess with, like bring into your circle as you continue your journey. Because just as much as we think about our own, like our name, our reputation, things like that, it's also interesting when you align yourself with people who, it's important to align yourself with people that are like that as well, because if not, that can be very derailing.
Yes, it can.
I've had some of those people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think everyone's North Star is different. And I don't know if everyone figures that out at different points in their life too, and I think I've refined, or maybe mine has become clearer over time, like it was like a fuzzy dot and now it's a bit more defined in the sky for me. Which kind of goes back to what I talked about a little earlier. I've always gravitated towards creating spaces and stories where people come together for something that they enjoy, and so, my background and my father, I grew up in Oregon. We went to concerts, sporting events, and movies. Right. So I also, we didn't, even though we grew up in Oregon, we weren't hiker, my parents, we didn't go camping. We didn't do the things I think people associate with Oregon. And so I grew up always knowing I wanted to be in those spaces. And I think truly it's because I was able to be exposed to at a very young age, places where tens of thousands of people would gather together to cheer something on, or, listen to a song, or, and it was such an impact on how beautiful those things were to me from like a unifying standpoint. I was like, I want to be a part of bringing people together like that. And I went to Jesuit high school, and I was very much ingrained with Ajay Quat Ajus, which is like a do well whatever you do, and being a servant leader has always been very important to me. And so when I look at everything I've done, like, for example, at ESPN, people are like, oh, you just like sell sports, you are creating. I'm like, yeah, but like, look at what happens. Like, people cry, like people create generational memories. It's that important to people. And so to be able to be a part of providing that, like to me was always such like an honor, right? And so now, and what I feel very humbled and honored to do is, my North Star is truly, again, it's creating and helping folks who are shifting narratives, creating culture, and creating opportunities for us to be better, right? And also enjoy this thing called life. So, whether that was, one of our clients, Ghetto Gastro, we just launched a book called Black Power Kitchen, and it's this genre bending cookbook, right? Ghetto Gastro is a culinary and creative collective out of the South Bronx. I've been able to work with them for the past 8 years, and to get your head around who they are is very, it's very meta, right? It's very subversive, and so they're 2 classically trained chefs, and the third is not a trained chef rather, but like we call a social architect, right? And very design oriented. And so when we looked at a cookbook, because that was what we were contracted to make, they were like, here's all these cookbooks, and you're like, yeah, but that's what everybody else does, so we're just going to go over here. And we've never found that to work. What we do is we use art. We use food as a vehicle to tell the story, right? The food is the art. There is story in every ingredient. There is story in how this is plated. There is history in these things. And we want to tell that story and educate folks. So Vogue called it 2023's most important cookbook.
Amazing.
It is as much as a cookbook as it is an art book. So many Black and brown artists from across the world have allowed us to have their art showcased, which goes along with a lot of the recipes, celebrating the importance of Black women and their mothers. There's this beautiful author, Osai Endelin, James Beard Award-winning author, who also throughout tells a full narrative. So you can read the cookbook like a book, right? And really truly learn and understand the power of food and how food can be a weapon for good and for bad. And so anyway, like, as you can tell, I get really passionate when I talk about this one thing that we've created. It took 3 years, but it's changing lives. Like, we just did a book tour around the country at museums, because this is art. This is a piece of history. This is how we view what this is. And I mean, thousands of people from all over the country came out and just like, this, you guys mean so much to us. And we haven't really done anything super consumer facing like this. And so, like, that's why I do it. The North Star is to know that someone who touches that thing that we created is better, or is entertained, or is whatever. And, I think specifically, if we want to kind of get granular too, we do represent and work with, I guess, historically underrepresented folks, right? Women, Black and brown communities. And so, that's also another part of it, is like, all right, let's just celebrate together and create dope stuff along the way that helps us be better together. So anyway, that's my North Star.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love how you talked about that. And, folks who are listening, there are people who say they want to do something. There are people that they might, I think one of the things I've always just respected so much about you, Courtney, is every time I turn around, something you're doing, it means something. There's impact to it. And that's, and especially when you're, this whole podcast is about elevating the voices of diverse, authentic leaders. And it's because I wanted to get finally, like, I need to do something more to somehow facilitate, that positive impact and being a part of change. And, you are such a beacon of that. And I really appreciate it and celebrate it. And it was funny. So folks, I was doing a little bit of stalking to see what Courtney was up to. And then I came upon a podcast, Ally to Action, which I featured in our newsletter, I don't know, a couple months ago or something. And once again, you are out there making something happen. And so, and not just a little bit, in a big way. So can you share a bit about that with folks? I think you had paused it for a moment, not totally sure where you are with it, but want to make sure that we do call it out.
Thank you, Shauna. Yeah, this is Ally to Action, was created in the wake of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd's murders. And, for everyone listening who may not know who I am, and my community is very diverse. The people I represent are my family. When I saw those things, I saw people I love. And I realized that, I remember I had a session with my therapist, and I was very heavy hearted, obviously. But and LA was having riots. There was a lot going on. And I just felt this weight of responsibility, because I feel like God had put me in a position to represent very unapologetically Black voices and people for a reason. And I was building bridges. I think a lot of times I tell folks that what I do, I translate. I'm a translator. And, because like it or not, there's been a lot of historically people in positions of power or decision makers are, from a different experience, right? Whether that be culturally or racially or otherwise. And so I have had this beautiful opportunity to live and breathe in these spaces very authentically. And so when all this happened, I was like, I had a lot of my like non-Black and brown folks in my life calling me, going, "What do I do? I want to do more, Courtney." Like as a place where I would know the answers. And then a lot of my Black and brown folks, specifically Black friends and family, were like, "I'm fucking tired. If one more well-intentioned white person calls me, like, I'm going to scream," because they were going through their own trauma, right? Like, you can't understand as a person who is not Black what that feels like. And so I would just be like, "Tell them to call me. Here's my number." I don't have all the answers, but I know that I have more than maybe the rest of the world, from a percentage standpoint. And long story short, I saw white space. I was frustrated because the internet had like some anti-racist white papers, thrown around. But like, cool. Even though you're a well-intentioned non-Black person, specifically mostly white folks, you really going to go to Google and download a white paper and read it and study it? You're not. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That means women, men, humans are inherently lazy, even if they're well-intentioned. And so, as a producer, as someone who creates entertainment for a living, as someone who knows and understands how to reach people where they're at, and that most people do have a heart that wanted to change, knowing that they may not have learned everything, and all these things were happening. It wasn't just emotional for people of color, it was emotional for non. And so I had this empathy that I wanted to be able to like tap into. And so I'm going to try and make a long story flat here. I called a handful of beautiful people in my life and created this super group. And we created a 21-day journey. It takes 21 days to form a habit. The whole idea was this word ally was starting to get real muddy and kind of have a negative connotation, because, like I say, it's the most overused and underutilized word. You're like, "I'm an ally." Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What you doing? What are you doing?
What the hell does that mean? Yeah.
Correct. And so, and Black people were like, "I fucking hate that word. I hate the word ally." And so, because, just like, people might say, "I hate the word Christian." It's like, well, why? Like, because some people live hypocritical lives. Like, what's the point? And so at the end of the day, it was like, okay, if there's action behind the word. And so Ally to Action became the name of what we created, a 21-day journey to becoming a better ally. We formed a group of experts and scholars who, along with us, created a 21-day curriculum. We partnered with Community, which was, those text-based platforms where you're like, "I'm Gary V, text me and I'll text you back." So that's that.
Oh,
tech.
yeah.
That's that tech. And they had never done something educational, right? They'd only done kind of the like celebrity to community thing. And I was so blown away. We had less than 21 days from the idea to when we launched, essentially, to the world. And we had 7,500 people in over 15 countries sign up to get a daily text or email. And we had 4 pillars. I had one of the best design companies in the world, Center Design. Shout out Alex Center, who created a entire visual identity for us in less than 72 hours. I had one of the best copywriters and creatives in the game show up. I mean, this man is show up and create this manifesto. And we just started encouraging people to invite themselves and inviting people to call themselves out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because this doesn't work. Pointing fingers.
Right.
You didn't know this, or you should do that. That doesn't work. Nobody likes to be pointed at. Nobody does.
Right.
But if it's like, hey, we're going to present to you each day 4 things: and inspire, educate, empower, and expand. We're going to give you a video that might learn something. So the first day was, and there are always questions. So the first day of day 21 days is, am I racist? Question mark. And that was and still is a very charged word. And the video we had sourced was that question being asked to blind people.
Oh, wow.
And so when you watch that video, you go, wait a minute. If this blind person who cannot see says they are racist because of these things, but this Black blind person said, it was just this, and then all of a sudden you're disarmed, right? And then we provided an article. Okay, look at it from this perspective. And then we provide 3 self-reflective questions, and then a moment for you to actually act on it. So that could be as easy as have a conversation with a friend about what you learned today. It doesn't have to be go to the streets or donate a ton of money or read the book, and so there's 21 days of that. And we did these live roundtables with beautiful voices from experts across the way to help people, because we were locked down. It was hard.
Yeah.
And look, politics mattered at this time. And the thing is, we had universities, corporations coming to us saying, we want this. This is the best thing we've seen to educate our people. So it was like, okay, how do I do that? I'm running a company. Now I'm running a nonprofit. We were all it was exhausting. It was very also traumatizing. So we had to quickly figure out how to do that. And then, all of a sudden politics really shifted the environment around what was okay and what wasn't. And there was a massive recorrection. And we decided, you know what? Okay, we have this curriculum. It is soon going to be offered to buy via Kajabi. But there was no real Kajabi then, right? There wasn't a way for us to get it out. We were going to put it behind a paywall and sell it corporately. And then corporations were like, oh, I know we said we wanted to do this, but maybe not. It was really discouraging.
So interesting.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And ultimately it came down to the conversations is where things change. And let's continue to have these conversations. And, the goal of Allied Action was to just expand what that meant. And so where we've evolved to over the past 3 years, because things have changed, the climate has shifted, is yes, our genesis, our DNA was rooted in that moment and in that allyship community, the Black community and people to the non-Black community. But there's the disabled community. There's, the LGBTQ plus A plus community. There's women. There's so many things. And so now we have the podcast. We're having conversations with people throughout diasporas just about what that means, right? I'm also running a company, and Matt, the president, is also doing lots of amazing other things. And so we have had to have a pause, but we're coming back, and I'm really excited that there's a couple new episodes before the end of the year. So sorry, but I'm very passionate about why we exist, even though we're not doing tons of educational stuff still, but allytoaction.org.
Yeah.
Check it out. And if you would like to join the Kajabi, it'll be $50 and you can go through 10 days of this instead of 21, because we got feedback that, even though 400 years was hard to fit into 21 days, corporate feedback was like, but I can't put my C-suite through 21 days, so make it 10. And I was like, fine. 10's better than 0.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I think it's like, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I'm pretty sure the audience probably feels as impassioned as hearing that as I do. I hope. I just think it is so important, because it's like, talk is one thing. It totally is. It's that, what is that action? And people talk about doing the work, and what does that mean? And there's so many different ways to do that. And so sometimes it can be just listening to a conversation, opening your mind, being empathetic, learning, being able to say, oh gosh, I didn't even realize I had that preconceived notion or something. So, I think that's so obviously in a very different way, but that's totally what these conversations that we're having right now, these conversations that you're having, is like, to raise that, to bring it to the forefront, because this is not something that we can ever stop, in my humble opinion. And we need to encourage more of it, and being totally fucking honest in that process, because that's the only way that we're going to make that impact, change lives, as you said. And so, folks, I said earlier, Courtney, about you, and I just so admire it. It's like, you don't just do a little bit, you do things in a meaningful way, and so I thank you for, I called you a beacon earlier. I wish I had a different word for it, but it's how I feel. So I just thank you so much. And I know we're getting towards the end here, so I'm going to get to wrapping it up, but we talked.
Sorry.
No. This is absolutely perfect. I love it. No, but we were talking earlier about leadership, excuse me, and you mentioned like being a servant leader earlier, and you've said it now. And, I really, I appreciate that, because again, like everything you've talked about, even from like, your little kid, when you were doing what'd you call it, Courtney? No, Carter Carnival. Carter, again, that was like again, uniting people, serving people. I think it's something that you honed, as you called it, over the years.
I want to be very clear.
And making
money.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Is that like you have a very keen business acumen, that, you're not a charity, even though you had a nonprofit, again, it's like, it's all to do good things, but it is business at the end of the day. Let me tell you what, folks, this woman means business. But in doing so, you juggle so many things. And so we were talking earlier about, you talked about your faith being a grounding force for you. And I think that's really important, whether it's prayer or for, listeners, or for just all of us. There's different things that are your, that represent faith, whether it's your meditation, your prayer, whatever that is. But I think that's a great takeaway for people. But you also mentioned something about that you had a friend who recently said to you about protecting your peace. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was a really great nugget for people who are also on the journey of evolution, doing a lot of things, evolving selves. How do you protect your peace along the way?
I appreciate you bringing that back. That was nice. Well done. I want to put a button on the former thing again, is like all of the stuff that I decide to invest my time and energy into serve my peace as well, right? Because my peace is like, am I waking up like in what I'm doing every day? Is it serving my purpose? Is it serving that North Star? And that serves my peace. So if I know that I'm helping create a book, I'm just going to go back to the books since I spoke about it, right? That is going to shift the minds and hearts, or open up people's aperture, right? Culturally, or just be able to help them create this beautiful meal around people they love. I'm serving my North Star. I'm serving my purpose. And so as long as I continue to serve that, then my peace is there, right? My peace is within me. It's my home. It doesn't just come when I do breathing exercises, you know? And so I think that that's important, is no matter if you're doing something where, like what I'm doing versus what you're doing, which is very specifically tied to impact. You could be a barista at Starbucks and decide that you are someone who wants to do this or this, and you can find your purpose in what you do. It is your choice, and I think that is, it is a daily choice to choose.
Yes.
A little repetitive there. My English teacher wouldn't like that. It is a daily choice to say, okay, I'm going to have this perspective today. I'm going to choose to serve this person in this conversation, which aligns with this. And so I think to be able to create stories, movies, TV, represent Carrie Twigg, and she worked in the Obama White House. And this is a girl who from the age of 12 to 29 was in politics nonstop, right? She just did it. And she wrote tons of policy. Okay. And if you don't understand, writing policy takes years, right? Getting that stuff through takes years. And you're like, this is how lives change. I'm going to change this policy. And then this law is going to change. And then, bah. And then she left the White House. And then Trump wrote all that shit out, right? In the stroke of a pen, all of that was gone. And it was in that moment that she realized, nothing can actually live in the world, like as a policy or a law, until it first lives in the hearts and minds of the person. How do you shift the hearts and minds of people? Stories, right? How do you connect with someone to allow them to have empathy towards you and your experience? You make them feel a part of that. And so she's very clear. She's like, it's no mistake that many former Obama White House people are in the business now of storytelling. Michelle and Barack have a production company. She now runs a production company. A lot of folks who left that White House are now, running content companies. And so to be able to do that serves my piece. I'm continuing to help people put things out that are going to open the aperture, open their heart, and then hopefully, things like policy and law and things can progress. But I do have mindfulness practices. My faith is very important to me. I'm a big fan of my pastor, Raphael Irwin McManus, in Mosaic in Los Angeles, to a lot of that and a lot of work. My therapist, who's in your neck of the woods, actually. I do recommend therapy for peace.
Yeah.
We don't need to get into plant medicine, but I also encourage the exploration of plant medicine in spiritual ways. And frankly, just a daily check-in. Yeah. Waking up, saying thank you to God before I put my feet on the ground, having a deep breath, and going. Am I doing my meditation every day? No. Would I be better if I did? Probably. But for me, like working out is meditation. Sweating hard, like moving my body, going to the gym, going outside, going on hikes, all of that to me helps me keep my peace. And so while I don't do all of them all the time, it's making sure you can catch that moment to go on that quick walk around the block, or encouraging your employees to also do it. I think that's a thing. Of a woman who works with me, Lauren Elias, who is just chef's kiss. She is very, very talented. And she'll be like, okay, I'm going to go for my afternoon walk. Check into my office. I'm going to go outside. And I'm like, yes, go. That's your piece. You need to, don't sit in front of that computer all day. But again, long-winded answer to everyone's different, but take the moments you can. It might be, going to in and out and getting a double-double. That might be what helps you protect your peace. And I endorse that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a great representation also of your authentic leadership, and for sharing with us the way you did. I really appreciate it. And for folks who are listening, I think it's really great to have, like I talk about this a lot, like a variety of tools in your toolbox, and it's the practice, it's the daily practice of it. As you said, it's a choice every day. And like my coach, Leslie Harris, Pam Harris's husband, who I've been working with for so long. Love him to pieces. I know. But he reminds me like one breath is enough, and like, you don't have to sit for a half hour on meditation. And so again, I think it's like, as a leader, no matter where you are in your journey, all of the things that you have on your plate, and oftentimes serving others and that commitment, and your cup can drain pretty quickly. So it's really important to have these practices to help ourselves to be able to show up in a present way for ourselves first. So I just thank you for getting into that with us. And so I know you have Art Basel to go to, but if there's one or two takeaways that you want to make sure that people have from our very rich conversation today, what would that be, is my final question for you, lady.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This has been super fun. I think we could do this for another 2 hours.
Oh, we totally could.
Yeah. I would say, as a reflection of our conversation, what I would leave folks with is like, one step is enough. You don't have to run the mile. I think, in whether that's in the the peace, like finding your peace. It's like, you don't have to go to the gym and work out for an hour, but like go for the blocks, go for the walk around the block, and know that like endurance doesn't happen overnight. Endurance is built over time. And to not discount experience and discount that, like, you're not going to wake up and make $1 million tomorrow, most likely when you're 25. Good for you if you found that company and you're a unicorn. All for it. But life is so rich, and it's never gonna not hurt, but the hurt is always going to be the character build that gets you to the closer version of your North Star. And so just, I think having a continued belief in the endurance of this journey, and not forgetting to like also enjoy it, is important. Like, have a great time. Don't take anything too seriously. And then I'd also just say the first and foremost is living in integrity with yourself. Like, the moment you deviate from that, everything else is going to fray. And so I think that'd be my parting words, is live in integrity with yourself, find your joy in your purpose. And that, my friends, that's where the sweet stuff is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I honor you. I celebrate you. I thank you. Happy early birthday.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Courtney. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I do. Love you to death, lady. Have a great day.
I'm going to shamelessly plug real quick.
Please
follow. Yeah, please follow Carter Media Group on Instagram. I'm Courtney Carter. It's real simple. I changed it from C2 because I was like, that seems like a thing you do in your 30s. So please, Carter Media Group, Instagram, see the beautiful work our clients are doing, like, share, subscribe, and go buy Black Power Kitchen for your holiday gifts. It is sold everywhere. But again, because it's called Black Power Kitchen doesn't mean it's not for you if you're not Black. I would encourage you to share it with your family and your friends. It's the most beautiful thing.
Amazing. I'm putting all of this in as we post about your episode, and I'm going to, because we're recording a little early, I'm going to stick it in our December email that's going out soon too. So thank you, lady. All right. Awesome. Have a great day.